Okay. So this week we're going to be doing the second part of our money management series, which is about, I really wanted to speak about expenses in your business and kind of like normalizing your income, meaning, you know, sometimes in sales you have ups and downs and some months are really big and some are not. How do you kind of like manage that? Like, how does it all work? And then some of you had some questions from last week. So I'm going to kind of talk about all of that and then give you guys time to ask questions. So first thing I want to tell you is that whenever I talk about money stuff, it's not the most fun topic, right? Like nobody goes, woohoo, we're talking about budgeting, yeah, right? But, and I get it, like most women who start Mary Kay start because they love people, because they want to make a difference, they want to increase their confidence. But I find that you can do all of those things better when you treat your business like a business, even if you're just doing it part-time, and you learn how to manage expenses and like pay yourself and all of these things, right? And I try to make it really simple because even sometimes when I'm looking at business websites or business plans, or I remember one time I had this book like Budgeting for Dummies, like it just like some of this stuff just like blows your mind and you're like, oh my gosh, I could never do this, right? So I'm going to try to give you a really simple way to sort of figure all this stuff out. So yay. First thing I want to address, Anna had asked this question. I thought it was a really good question. And for some reason in my mind, it totally stumped my brain for a while. And I was trying to think of why it stumped my brain for a while. And then I went, oh, that's why it stumped my brain for a while. So she had asked a question like when new products are coming out, right? Last week we had talked about the 60-40 split and paying yourself. So if you haven't seen that, go ahead and watch the other money management video. She said, you know, because like if you went and sold, let's say you sold an eye makeup remover and a miracle set, right? You're going to split your money and you want to replace that miracle set and that eye makeup remover. But what if new products are coming out? Like how do you take money from your account, from your 60-40 split to buy the new products when you have to use that money to replace the miracle set and the eye makeup remover? Are you guys following me? So here's the answer to the question. Are you ready? So here's why this stumped me, because I carry a large inventory. Okay, so I usually have, and I'm not suggesting anyone have this. In fact, I would not recommend anyone having this much on hand unless you have the customer base that I have. I have about 7,000 to 8,000 wholesale on my shelf at any given time, right? We consider a full store, meaning like you have one of everything and you have multiples deep of things at 3,600. Doesn't mean you have to have that much on hand, but that's just kind of like, you know, if you were going to call something a full store, it would be that amount. And so the reason that I don't ever think about that is because like if I sold an eye makeup remover and a miracle set, I would plug it into my business tracking register and I would use that money just to get new products because I have multiples deep of the other products. So it doesn't really matter to me if I don't replace that mirror. Like I don't have to replace one for one. So the answer to the question is if you have a smaller inventory, you might have to split your money for the weeks, like maybe the week or two leading up to new products coming out. You might have to split your money like 70-30 or 80-20 to give yourself extra funds to be able to get those products. Or build your inventory up so you have a larger inventory so that you don't have to replace like for like all of the time. So I don't know if that's helpful at all, but that's, I even asked my friend Bessa, who's like my money management guru, and she's like, yeah, that's the answer. It's not an ideal answer. It's not the, you know, the only answer, but it's what I know to be true, right? So so that's that. So today what I want to chat about is normalizing your income. You guys have kind of asked me about this, like how do you make a business like Mary Kay, which, you know, isn't a steady paycheck, how do you make it normal? Like how do you make it consistent? And I will just share with you just off the bat, and if you guys have questions while I'm talking, just go ahead and like throw them in the chat. And I have the chat open so I can see it, but I will never forget. So my college friends think it's so funny I'm in Mary Kay. They're very supportive, but they always say like, I don't know how you do Mary Kay. You don't have a steady paycheck. Okay. And I get that from a lot of people that I'm talking with. Like people have this like need for stability, which I totally understand. But here's what I think. I look at them and I go, ew, you make the same thing every week. Like you have no potential to make more than what you're being paid. Like you literally can't make any more. Like if you make 300 a week, you make 300 a week. Like there's no way you're making 500 a week if you're making 300 a week. So that excites me that we actually do have quite a level of control over that. So I'm going to show you like how I create control over that paycheck. And the first way that you do that is figuring out how much you sell per face. Okay, so if you consider every person that you meet with a face, we consider them more than that. I mean, like, I'm just talking from a business standpoint. Like, obviously, we see people as people, we love them, and they're not like, you know, dollar signs and all that stuff. But, like, if you considered every person you're in front of a face, what is your per face average? And so you're like, okay, well, how do I figure out my per face average? So this is what you're going to do this month, okay? So you're going to, for the month of September, and you can easily do this just in a simple notebook, right? Notebooks are cheap right now. They're giving them away at Target because like they have so many school supplies left. So go get yourself some notebooks, right? Or whatever, use some paper you got at home. And just track how many faces are you in front of sharing the products this month, right? So let's say you're in front of 30 faces this month, right? And then you divide that by how much did you sell this month, right? So let's say, for example, you had $1,300 in sales on 30 faces. I would say that's pretty, you know, that's probably even lowballing it, right? So like 30 faces, $1,300 in sales. Your per face average would be $43.33. Okay, so on average, when you go and do an appointment per person, you sell $43.33. When you track that over time and average, like let's say you do that for the next 6 months, and then you average the 6 months together, it might be a different number, but it might be pretty close to that. You're going to get a really accurate look at this. And so here's what's exciting about this. So if you want to create consistency in your business, you can go, like let's say you have a big goal, like you want to sell 2,100 this month, right? Because I don't know, maybe you need money for car tires, or I don't know, whatever you guys need money for, right? You all have different things. You would take your 2,100 that you need to sell and you divide it by your per face average, which in this case is $43.33. So you would need to see about 48 faces in order to sell 2,100. Now, obviously it's not perfect. Like you might be able to sell 2,100 on 15 faces, depending on the kind of faces you're in front of, but it's going to give you at least sort of an accurate look of what you need to do. If you needed to sell $500 with that same average, I think it was like 11 or 15, I don't know, it was something lower. I didn't write the math down. And you guys know me, you know how much I like really don't like math. So if I can do this, I know that everybody listening to the Zoom can do this, right? I really don't like math. So that's one way. The other way you normalize your income is just by being consistent yourself, right? I think it's better to do one party a week, every week, than to do 4 parties in 1 week. Because if you're doing one party every week, you have income coming in every week instead of having like one giant week where you have like $1,000 coming in and then $0 the rest of the time. So kind of, you know, booking consistent appointments leads to consistent income. And then the other thing is, and we're going to talk about this next week, is really learning how to just strategies for like increasing your customer sales, like your reorders, and creating customer loyalty. So we're going to talk about that next week. Just fun things that we do to create loyalty with our customers and increase our reorders, because that, you know, if you have your per face average, you're gonna have to see less faces over time as your reorders go up, right? Because you can sell just as much as someone else seeing 1 million faces if your reorders are really good. And the magic really happens when you're seeing a lot of faces and you have really good reorders. Like that's when you're selling like a lot. And that's really exciting. Yay. So the other way you do this is utilizing all avenues of income in Mary Kay too. Like, right, we make 50% commission on the product, yay. The other avenue of income for you guys is team building commissions. And I always tell you guys this, when I was a consultant and I had a team of 5 to 7 women that were working the business. Like they weren't earning cars or anything like that, but they were consistent my commission checks were like $400 to $600 a month, and it goes up from there, right? I know Kate. I looked at Kate's commission check for this last month, and hers was $277. So Kate is getting almost $300 just from team building, so that's exciting. So making sure that you're utilizing that avenue of income, and the way that you do that is just like Katie said, yay Katie, work in full circle, right? At every appointment you do, you sell product, you book future appointments, and you share the opportunity. So you're kind of doing all of those things at every appointment, and it's kind of maximizing those too. And then the other way you can do this, and this is what we're really going to get into tonight, is by creating a budget too. Because, you know, it's not just how much you make, it's how much you keep after you make some, right? Like you gotta make some first, then you gotta keep some. And sometimes we're not so good at keeping some, right? Like we're good at making it, we're not good at keeping it. So creating a budget. Now, here's things that creating a budget does. It makes your business more efficient. It predicts your slow months. It helps you predict your slower months. And it gives you control over your business and sort of a window into the future. So I'm going to show you how to do this. You might want to write these things down, okay? Because these are kind of steps to making a budget by Emily Schutte. Are you ready for this? Okay, so number one is you have to examine your revenue. So exciting. Okay, so revenue is different than profit. Okay, so profit is what you make after expenses, right? Revenue is what you bring in before expenses are taken out. So what's the total amount that you sold and plus your team building commissions in a month? So that is your revenue. So you have to examine your revenue. And I have a little worksheet that's going to help you guys with this, okay? Number two is you have to subtract fixed costs. Okay, so there's two kinds of expenses. There are fixed expenses and there are discretionary expenses. Sounds like a naughty word, doesn't it? Discretionary. It kind of is actually. So fixed expenses is anything necessary on a recurring basis in your business. Like this happens monthly. Like without fail, these are things you're going to have to pay for. So for example, monthly expenses, postage. How many of you have been spending money on postage without fail on a monthly basis? It's not really optional, right? Like you got to spend money on postage. Postage, project broadcasts, right? That's if you're using a texting service. There's office supplies. So I have a worksheet with like categories. Okay, just stay with me. So that's a fixed cost. Those are non-negotiable. I would also put conference fees in there. And one of the things that I think, so we have 3 conferences a year that consultants can attend. One is Fall Advance, which normally is in person in October. It's going to be virtual. The second one is Career Conference, and it is in March. It comes to a city near you. So Minnesota, there's one in Texas. They're all over the place, right? And then the third one is Seminar, and that's in Dallas. I think conferences are a fixed cost because I believe in the power of a conference. Like anyone who's been to one is like nodding their head furiously right now because it just fills your cup. It gives you education that you need. It helps take your business to the next level. And I figured out that if you put away $80 a month, okay, depending on where you live, Shannon is going to have a way cheaper time of this because she lives in Texas and can easily drive to Dallas, right? She lives like in the area, right? So, depending on where you live, but if you're in Minnesota and you're flying to Dallas, I figured out if you put aside about $80 a month, it would pay for every conference, including the travel and flights and everything. Okay, so that would include Career Conference, that would include Fall Advance, and that would include Seminar. So that's doable, right? So I mean, that's just my opinion. You guys own your own business. You get to decide what's important to you, but so you're going to subtract your fixed costs. You're going to take the total amount come in, fixed costs come out, and then you're going to look at that number, okay? And here's where you should start is just for the next few months, just like you're going to track your per face average, which, yes, there is a sheet on this. so Katie just wrote in the chat that her per face average this month is 48. So $43 is probably pretty close to what a lot of people are doing right now. So that's exciting. She has that knowledge. In the same way that you can track that, take out your notebook and just write down anything you spend money on in your Mary Kay business, like in a month. Like, don't judge it, just like write it down. Like, okay, I just spent $20 on cotton balls. I don't know why you would spend that much on cotton balls. That was silly, but you know what I'm saying. It's a lot of cotton balls. And write it down, and then it might be a good exercise to go, okay, is that a fixed cost or is it a discretionary expense? So a discretionary expense is something that like maybe you want for your business, but it's not really necessary to the operation or success of it. For example, buying suitcases and like fun t-shirts and tumblers on MK Connections, right? Like we all love to buy a bunch of that stuff, but is it necessary? No. Like I remember for the first 6 months of my business, I had my inventory in like a suitcase that I just owned, right? So I didn't buy those fancy bags on MK Connections until I had profit. So what ends up happening is you're going to have months where like, you know, sales are really high, expenses are low, and you have extra. And those are the months that you can say, okay, I have extra this month. I'm going to use that for some of this fun stuff that I want. Maybe you need a new computer, right? Like you just are really, this is me right now. My husband's like, your computer is so slow, you need a new one. I'm like, yeah, but it's a discretionary expense. It's not really a have to right now. It's just sort of one of those things. So we'll see how the next few months go and if I feel like adding, you know, that as an expense. Does that make sense? So that's fixed versus discretionary. So I made this like thing, and I'm gonna send you guys this. So this is just a really simple sheet. Okay, not that. This is like the biocellulose mask. Hold on. Okay, now we've got my music. Sorry, guys. Okay. You get to see my really super organized desktop. Here it is. It's my organized chaos. Okay, so this is a sheet that I made for this. So this is your business at a glance. So you have your fixed expenses. So I put post or office supplies, preferred customer program. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about it yet. Samples, I feel like that's a fixed expense right now because we need to buy samples to do virtual appointments. Shipping on orders, subscriptions, that would be like project broadcasts, anything else you pay for monthly. Conference fees, lunches or coffees out. Like now, just as a word, you can't put like anytime you go to Starbucks, right? It has to be business related. Going to Starbucks, like you're meeting with someone to chat with them about Mary Kay. Workshops, prizes or promotions, other. And then here's some examples of like discretionary expenses. New equipment, MK Connections, Mary Kay souvenirs, just like anything like that. And so this is just a fun little sheet where you can start tracking this. And you guys, I'm not perfect at this. I just want to tell you that. Like, it took me a really long time to even like muster any sort of motivation to want to do this. I worked my business for years without a budget and I was just fine. But now that I have a budget, I am keeping so much more of my money. And it's exciting because it just is. So monthly expenses year to date, income before expenses. So it's all on this sheet. So I think if you just tracked it, so if you're like, okay, I don't really know where to start and this is like terrifying, this is terrifying to me, just start by tracking things. Like anytime you buy something from Mary Kay, just write it in a notebook. And you might even surprise yourself with things that you're buying that you think you should buy, but then you really don't need to. And sometimes when I'm in a moment like that, like you're like, oh, I really want this sparkly pink Cadillac tumbler. Sometimes I envision myself holding it in my hands and go, do I really need that? No. Even though I would love to have it, right? You can actually earn this for doing virtual coffees this month, right? So you can get it for free. And, you know, someone, I don't know where I heard this, but it's very wise. The rich get rich because they spend like they're poor, and the poor get poor because they spend like they're rich, right? So and of course, like the world isn't that black and white, but just like in general, like just really watching your expenses and, you know, putting your money where it's most important. So that's what I have for you guys today. So what questions do you guys have about this or any other money management stuff that we covered last week that maybe I am missing?